Silence is a strange companion. It walks beside you without footsteps, breathes near you without a sound, and still somehow fills the whole room with its presence. Some people fear it because they imagine it as emptiness, a hollow space with nothing to hold on to. But I've lived long enough to understand that silence is not empty at all. Silence is full. Full of answers we did not know we were seeking. Full of lessons that rise like dawn when the night has overstayed its welcome. Full of the kind of strength that does not shout, but still moves mountains inside the soul. When the world begins to tug at your heartstrings and drag your spirit towards storms that are not yours to weather, silence steps forward like an old friend, wraps its warm arm around you, and whispers, "Child, be still. Let the noise pass you by." There is a peace in that stillness that cannot be found in the busy circles of worry or the echoing halls of anger. Silence knows how to wave away chaos like dust from a windowsill. It knows how to guide you back to yourself the way a mother guides a tired child home. There are moments in life when the weight of expectations presses against your chest, when voices around you demand reactions, demand explanations, demand emotions you do not have the energy to give. But there comes a time when you must learn to detach yourself, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Detachment is not a wall, it is a doorway. A doorway into freedom, into understanding, into the calm center of your own spirit. It is the decision to step away from the noise, so you can hear the truth rising within you. You must understand that your peace is not an accident, it is a choice. And like all meaningful choices, it requires a kind of discipline that does not come easily. Detachment takes practice. You learn it the way a river learns patience, slowly carving its path through stone, reshaping the land without ever raising its voice. You learn it the way a tree stands through storm after storm, bending but not breaking, holding firm to the ground that knows its name. There will be times when people expect you to respond with fire. They expect your anger to leap forward like a wild animal. They expect your voice to crack the air. But you are allowed to stay calm. You are allowed to step back, breathe deep, and let the storm exhaust itself without joining it. Your calm is not weakness. It is power disguised as grace. It is strength wrapped in velvet. It is the quiet refusal to let anyone drag you into a battle that does not belong to your soul. To stay calm is to remember that your spirit is larger than any moment of chaos. It is to remember that you do not have to attend every argument to which you are invited. You do not have to drink from every cup that is handed to you, especially if it contains poison. You can sit in your silence, sip your peace like warm tea, and let the world spin around you while you remain rooted in yourself. Emotional detachment is not about withdrawing from life. It is about protecting your heart from becoming a battlefield. It is about stepping away from situations that chew up your softness and spit it out on the floor. It is the wisdom to understand that not every problem is your assignment, and not every cry is your call. Sometimes you must let people wrestle with their own shadows while you preserve your light. You are not required to set yourself on fire just to keep others warm. Some people believe they can disturb your peace because they have learned to confuse your kindness with surrender. They mistake your gentleness for fragility. They mistake your quiet for inability. They believe that if they can provoke you, they can control you. But what a surprising thing it is when you rise above their expectations, when you refuse to be baited, when you respond not with rage, but with restraint. That is when they learn that your silence is not silence at all. It is strength that refuses to waste itself. The world will show you many faces. Some will smile at you with light in their eyes. Some will look at you with shadows on their tongue. Some will try to pull you into their storms because they do not know how to quiet the thunder inside themselves. But you have a right, a holy right, to protect your peace. You have a right to walk away from noise that tries to swallow your joy. You have a right to choose calmness over chaos, clarity over confusion, silence over unnecessary suffering. When your heart grows tired, silence will cradle it. When your mind grows crowded, silence will open the windows. When your spirit grows tangled, silence will calm through the knots. And when your life grows loud with demands and disappointments, silence will sing you back to balance. There is a whole symphony tucked inside the quiet. waiting to remind you of your own wisdom. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the art of feeling without allowing the feeling to consume you. It is being able to look at a situation and say, I acknowledge this pain, but I refuse to let it steer the wheel. It is being able to watch the waves rise without being pulled under. You become like the ocean itself, deep, steady, mysterious, and powerful in your calm. There will be days when the world tries to drag you into old patterns, old arguments, old wounds. But you do not have to respond the way you once did. Growth gives you new choices. Wisdom gives you new tools. Silence gives you new strength. Some battles you win by fighting. Others you win by refusing to fight at all. When you detach emotionally, you reclaim your power. You begin to understand that you do not have to chase after closure. You do not have to run after explanations. You do not have to beg for peace. You carry your peace within you, like a lantern lighting your path. And when you learn to walk with that lantern, you discover that very little in life can disturb a soul that has learned to rest in itself. There will be voices that say silence is weakness. Let them talk. Let them fill the air with their noise and their misunderstandings. You know the truth. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is the presence of mastery. Anyone can shout. Anyone can slam a door. Anyone can lose themselves in anger. But it takes strength to stay centered, to rise above, to remain rooted in a calm that cannot be stolen. Sometimes silence is the only bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. The person you once were may have reacted quickly, responded loudly, jumped into emotional fires without thinking. But the person you are now, the person you are growing into, carries a different kind of wisdom. You have learned that not every spark requires your breath. Not every challenge deserves your time. Not every opinion needs your attention. The world will try to pull you in many directions. Some will ask you to explain yourself again and again. Some will expect you to justify your boundaries. Some will accuse you of being distant when you decide to protect your heart. But do not let their misunderstandings make you abandon your peace. Let them talk. You stay calm. You stay rooted. You stay true to the quiet strength growing inside you. There is a beautiful fierceness in staying calm. It is the quiet thunder of discipline. It is the soft rumble of self-respect. It is the gentle roar of a soul that knows its worth. The calm person is not asleep. The calm person is awake in the deepest way, fully aware, fully present, fully in control of themselves. When life brings you storms, stand still the way mountains do. Let the winds howl, let the rain fall, let the lightning crack open the sky. The storm will get tired long before you do. The mountain does not shout back. The mountain simply stands grounded in its own existence. You must learn to be that mountain sometimes. Stand, breathe, and watch how silence protects you from damage you do not deserve. Calmness gives you clarity. Clarity gives you wisdom. Wisdom gives you power. And that power allows you to move through the world with a grace that others cannot easily shake. You begin to see people for who they are, not for who you hoped they would be. You begin to understand situations without being blinded by emotion. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to choose peace on purpose. Emotional detachment is not running away from life. It is choosing the highest version of yourself in the middle of life's noise. It is saying, I refuse to sacrifice my peace for anything that does not feed my spirit. It is saying, I will stand in my calm even when the world tries to shake me. And it is saying, my silence is not empty. My silence is sacred. When you master silence, you master yourself. You begin to understand that you do not have to prove your worth. You do not have to defend your heart. You do not have to shout to be heard. You can speak softly, gently, intentionally, and still shake the room. You can walk away from chaos without guilt. You can let go without fear. You can rise without announcing your ascent. Calmness is a gift you give yourself. Detachment is a shield you hold in your own hands. And silence is the friend who never leaves your side. These three together will guide you through life like guardian spirits, whispering wisdom in your ear when the world grows loud. There will come a day when someone asks you how you learned to stay so calm. They will wonder how you manage to keep your heart steady while everything around you trembles. and you will smile with the softness of someone who has traveled far and learned deeply. You will say, I learned the power of silence. I learned the strength in walking away. I learned that my peace is my responsibility. And I learned that the calm within me is worth more than anything outside of me. And that, my dear, is how you rise. That is how you stay whole. That is how you remain unbothered by storms that are not your destiny, through silence, through detachment, through calm that cannot be stolen. You deserve a life where your spirit can breathe. You deserve peace that does not tremble when the world shouts. You deserve the freedom of choosing your own emotions, instead of letting others choose them for you. You deserve the quiet joy of knowing that your calm is yours alone, untouched by the storms of others. Walk with silence as your companion. Carry calmness in your hands like water. Let emotional detachment be the wings that lift you above unnecessary pain. And watch how the world begins to shift around you when you refuse to be moved. That is the power of silence. That is the strength of emotional detachment. That is the beauty of staying calm. And that is how a soul becomes unshakable. Silence protects your power when words would only weaken your peace. Because silence knows how to hold the weight of a moment without letting it spill all over your spirit. There are times when speaking feels like tossing your energy into a windstorm, watching it scatter before it ever reaches where you meant it to go. But silence gathers itself. Silence waits. Silence lets you breathe long enough to understand what is yours to carry and what is simply passing through. When people push your buttons, tug at your patience, or try to draw you into their storms, silence becomes a shield made not of steel but of wisdom. It wraps around you the way twilight wraps a tired sky, soft but unmovable, gentle but certain. Silence gives you room to think, to settle, to hear the small truths rising inside you like lanterns on a dark river. It reminds you that not every question deserves an answer, and not every accusation requires a defense. Some moments only grow heavier with explanation, because explaining yourself to someone determined to misunderstand you is like trying to convince the sea to stop being water. They are already committed to their version of the story, so your words spill uselessly at their feet. That is when silence steps in and says, save your strength. Silence also sharpens your presence. When you stop giving away your voice so easily, people begin to notice the gravity of your calm. They learn that you are not moved by noise, that your peace is not something they can snatch with a careless comment or a raised tone. Silence teaches them that you have boundaries, invisible but firm, like a shoreline deciding where the tide may and may not wander. It shows them that your dignity is not up for negotiation. In silence, you reclaim your authority over your emotions. You stop reacting to every spark someone tosses your way, and you start choosing which fires are worth tending. Most are not. Most are simply invitations to chaos disguised as conversations. Silence lets you step back and see the true shape of things before you give them space in your heart. It lets you breathe through irritation, think through confusion, and rise above provocation. It lets you turn your energy inward, polishing your inner world instead of fighting battles that leave you weary and scattered. Silence can feel lonely at first, especially when you are used to defending yourself or proving your point. But with time, it becomes a soft throne where your power sits upright. You start to understand that peace is not won through arguments. It is preserved through restraint. It is tended through quiet choices made in the privacy of your own spirit. Silence teaches you to trust yourself, to listen to your intuition before the world's noise drowns it out. It teaches you that your voice is most powerful when you choose to use it with intention, rather than impulse. Silence protects your power when words would only weaken your peace, because it returns you to yourself, steady and whole, untouched by the storm swirling around you. Emotional detachment is choosing clarity over chaos, not coldness over care. Because it teaches you to hold your heart without handing it over to every situation that stirs the air around you. It is the gentle art of stepping back so you can see the picture without being pulled into the frame. When you detach, you are not shutting people out. You are letting yourself breathe long enough to understand what matters. You begin to see patterns you once walked through blindly. You begin to notice the difference between someone needing support and someone draining your spirit. You notice how much of your energy was being spent patching cracks that were never yours to repair. Detachment gives you the distance to recognize these truths before they swallow you whole. Clarity arrives when you stop letting every emotion attach itself to your ribs. It comes when you decide that your peace deserves protection, and your mind deserves space to think without drowning in the waves of someone else's storms. Detachment allows you to observe your feelings without letting them drag you into reactions that leave you tired or regretful. It is like standing on a hill instead of in the valley, where you can finally see the road twisting ahead instead of stumbling on every step. From the hill, you notice where the drama begins, where the misunderstanding grows, where the expectations tighten their ropes, and once you notice, you no longer fall for them so easily. Choosing clarity means refusing to let every comment, every argument, every misunderstanding sink its teeth into you. You begin to realize that not everything needs to be taken personally. Not every tone is an attack. Not every silence is rejection. Detachment lets you separate your self-worth from the noise around you. It lets you see that sometimes people act from their wounds and their worries, not because of anything you did. When you detach, you stop absorbing their storms as if they were written with your name. You see their actions as reflections of their own battles, not measures of your value. Detachment also protects your kindness from being used as a doorway for anyone to walk through. You remain compassionate, but your compassion gains edges. You carry love, but not at the price of your own stability. You listen, but you do not lose yourself in someone else's narrative. You care, but you do not cling. You give, but you do not empty your spirit until there is nothing left for yourself. Detachment helps you draw this line with steady hands. It allows you to love without losing your name in someone else's story. When you choose clarity over chaos, people may accuse you of being distant, but distance and disconnection are not the same. Distance is space for perspective. Distance is room for truth. Distance is where you find yourself again after being tangled in the expectations or emotions of others. Detachment lets your heart breathe. It lets your spirit settle. It lets your mind sort the real from the imagined, the helpful from the harmful, the urgent from the unnecessary. Emotional detachment is choosing clarity over chaos, not coldness over care, because it helps you return to yourself with steadier hands and a quieter soul, ready to face the world from a place of inner balance instead of emotional exhaustion. Calmness is a form of leadership that begins within, not around you, because true steadiness is born in the quiet chambers of your own spirit long before it ever shows on your face or in your actions. Calmness is not something you perform for the world. It is something you cultivate like a slow, growing garden inside yourself. It is the choice to breathe when everything around you is pulling at your patience. It is the decision to remain grounded while others trip over their own reactions. Calmness is the steady hand that guides you through the rough edges of life without letting you shatter against them. When you lead yourself with calmness, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, see differently. You no longer chase the noise. You rise above it. You no longer feed the fires. You learn to warm your own hands without burning your own peace. Calmness does not mean you are free from emotion. It means you are free from letting emotion command every move you make. You feel, but you do not fall apart. You respond, but you do not react with haste. You stand strong, but you do not swing wildly at every challenge that crosses your path. People often misunderstand calmness as passivity. But calmness is one of the strongest forms of power a person can hold. Anyone can panic. Anyone can explode. Anyone can lose themselves in the heat of the moment. But it takes a different kind of strength to pause, observe, and choose your next step with intention. This kind of inner leadership guides your actions like a compass, always pulling you back toward clarity even when the world tries to spin you in circles. When you carry calmness within, people begin to respond to you differently. They sense a steadiness in your presence that makes them rethink their own approach. Your energy, quiet as it may be, begins to shape the atmosphere around you. Without raising your voice, you set a tone. Without commanding, you influence. Without force, you create space for understanding instead of chaos. This is the leadership of calmness. It does not impose, it inspires. It does not demand, it demonstrates. When you walk into a situation with calm shoulders and an unshaken voice, you become a mirror that shows others a better way to move. Calmness sharpens your choices. It allows you to separate urgency from importance, emotion from reality, impulse from wisdom. Instead of being swept up in every moment, you learn to stay anchored. You see the broader view, the long game, the hidden meaning behind the rush. Calmness helps you think with a clear mind instead of a cluttered heart. It gives you the space to decide what deserves your energy and what deserves your silence. It keeps you from scattering your strength across battles that do not matter. It teaches you to respond from knowledge instead of fear. Leadership that begins inside you becomes leadership that radiates outside you. People trust those who remain steady in storms, who hold their center while others lose theirs, who carry themselves with a quiet certainty that cannot be rattled. Your calmness becomes a lighthouse for others, guiding without shouting, shining without blinding. You become someone who stabilizes a room just by entering it, someone who offers peace simply by holding it within yourself. Calmness is the quiet anchor of a strong soul. Leading you forward one steady breath at a time, you rise fastest when you stop reacting to noise that doesn't deserve your energy. Because every time you pour your spirit into a moment that has no meaning, you delay your own growth. The world is full of distractions dressed as emergencies, full of voices calling your name without offering anything worth your time. Noise comes in many forms. It comes as arguments that go in circles, expectations that weigh you down, criticism from people who do not understand your journey, and emotional storms that have nothing to do with your purpose. When you react to all of it, your energy scatters like seeds thrown into the wind. But when you learn to pause, breathe, and choose where your attention lands, you begin to rise with a different kind of strength. Your life starts lifting the moment you stop bending toward every shout, every demand, every whisper that tries to pull you off your path. Rising requires focus. It requires the bold decision to guard your energy like a treasure. You begin to understand that not every moment deserves your voice. Not every situation needs your involvement. Not every challenge is meant for your hands. Some noise exists simply to test how quickly you can be distracted. Some noise wants to pull you backward just when you are learning to move forward. When you react to all of it, you become tired, drained, and tangled in battles that do not build you. But when you ignore what is beneath you, your spirit becomes lighter, clearer, and capable of climbing toward better heights. There is a quiet wisdom that grows inside you when you let noise pass without letting it enter your heart. You begin to see that many things people say are reflections of their own fears, their own pain, their own confusion. You stop personalizing everything. You stop giving emotional weight to comments that could never define you. You stop exhausting yourself trying to fix situations that were broken long before you arrived. This inner shift is powerful because it frees you from carrying burdens that were never yours to hold. You start walking differently, thinking differently, choosing differently. Your energy becomes sharper, cleaner, more intentional. And that intention becomes the ladder you climb with every calm decision. When you stop reacting to noise, you create room for clarity. You create room for purpose. You create room for peace. Instead of being pulled in every direction, you begin to move in the direction that matters most. You invest your energy into what grows you, not what drains you. You put your time into what strengthens you, not what shakes you. And piece by piece, breath by breath, you begin to rise in ways that silence the noise without ever raising your voice. People may wonder how you elevate so quietly, how you move forward without pushing, how you grow without announcing every step. They may not understand that the secret is simple. You have stopped feeding distractions. You have stopped letting noise dictate your pace. You have stopped giving your energy away to things that do not nourish your future. When noise stops controlling you, your spirit becomes free to reach its full height. You rise because you are no longer weighed down. You rise because you protect your peace. You rise because you know your energy is sacred. and you refuse to waste it on anything that does not carry meaning for your journey. Peace becomes unbreakable when you stop taking things personally, because so much of what people say and do has little to do with you, and everything to do with the storms, scars, and stories they carry inside themselves. When you take things personally, you begin to absorb emotions that were never born in your heart. You let words meant to wound themselves land on your spirit as if they were your responsibility. You let misunderstandings tighten around your chest until you can barely breathe. You let the opinions of others build fences around your confidence. And without realizing it, you start walking through life weighted down by burdens that were never meant for your shoulders. But the moment you begin to see the truth beneath human behavior, the moment you understand that reactions come from histories you cannot see, something inside you loosens. Your peace begins to grow roots. Your heart begins to strengthen. And the actions of others stop stealing the calm you worked so hard to build. When you stop taking things personally, you become a witness to life instead of a target for every careless arrow. You begin to watch situations with clear eyes, not emotional fog. Someone's anger no longer stings because you recognize it as their unhealed wound speaking. Someone's silence no longer feels like rejection because you understand they may be wrestling with their own battles. Someone's impatience doesn't push you into panic because you know it is a reflection of their inner rush, not a reflection of your worth. This shift in perspective frees you. It untangles you. It gives you permission to stop carrying other people's weather inside your chest. Most people are walking around with hearts full of stories they have never spoken. Some are bruised from childhood pain. Some are exhausted from life's pressures. Some are wounded from their own mistakes. And some are frightened of futures they cannot predict. When they speak sharply, it is often the voice of their fear. When they act selfishly, it is often the shadow of their insecurity. When they distance themselves, it is often the echo of their confusion. None of this has anything to do with your value. None of this determines your worth. None of this should decide how you feel about yourself. But when you take things personally, you turn these passing moments into permanent marks. You let temporary emotions define you. You let other people's storms destroy your sunny sky. The truth is, people rarely respond to you. They respond to their memory of someone else. They respond to their worries about the future. They respond to the pressure sitting on their shoulders. They respond to the noise in their own mind. You might simply be standing in the path of a feeling that has been building inside them for years. Once you realize this, you stop allowing their lightning to strike your heart. You step out of the way. You breathe. You protect your peace by remembering that everyone sees life through a different lens made from their own joys and their own wounds. Letting go of the habit of taking things personally also shifts the way you speak to yourself. You begin to treat yourself with gentleness instead of blame. You stop replaying every conversation as if you did something wrong. You stop doubting your worth every time someone else fails to understand you. You stop shrinking in response to someone's temporary frustration. Instead, you grow. You stand, you flourish. You find comfort in the knowledge that your value is not determined by the moods or opinions of anyone around you. Your value is constant. Your worth is steady. Your peace is yours to guard. When you choose not to internalize every interaction, your mind becomes lighter. You spend less time overthinking and more time living. You stop analyzing every tone, every glance, every word spoken in irritation. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to trust your intentions. You begin to trust your path. And with that trust, your peace becomes a shield instead of something fragile. You stop being easily shaken. You stop bending every time someone else sends a ripple your way. You stop breaking in places that had already healed. The beauty of not taking things personally is that it softens the world without weakening you. You start to give people room to be human. You allow them their bad days without letting their mood stain your spirit. You let misunderstandings pass without gripping your heart. You learn to listen without absorbing, to observe without reacting, to care without collapsing. Compassion grows in you in a healthier, balanced way. You stop being a sponge. You become more like a clear lake. You reflect, you steady, but you do not become polluted by every drop that touches your surface. This inner shift also deepens your confidence. When you stop assuming that everything said or done is aimed at you, you stop questioning yourself at every turn. Confidence is not built by pretending to be untouched by the world. Confidence is built by knowing what is yours to carry and what belongs to others. It is built by knowing your strengths, understanding your flaws, and refusing to let the world define your worth for you. It is built by standing calmly in your own identity, even when the world around you is loud with opinions. Relationships also transform when you stop taking things personally. Instead of reacting to every tone, you begin to listen for meaning. Instead of defending yourself constantly, you give space for understanding. Instead of spiraling into insecurity, you ground yourself in self-awareness. You become someone who communicates with clarity instead of emotion, someone who chooses patience instead of panic, someone who responds with wisdom instead of woundedness. This steadiness allows healthier connections to form, while unhealthy ones naturally fade because they no longer have the power to control your emotional climate. Letting go of personal interpretations also allows you to rise above pettiness. You stop getting caught in small conflicts. You stop responding to jealousy or judgment with hurt. You stop engaging in arguments that lead nowhere. Instead, you choose peace. You choose growth. You choose to walk away from situations that offer no nourishment to your spirit. People may notice this change. Some may feel confused by your calm. Some may feel challenged by your strength. Some may even try harder to provoke you because they want the old version of you back. But you will not return to the old version of yourself once you've tasted the freedom of emotional independence. Peace becomes unbreakable because you stop giving everyone access to your inner world. You stop allowing their moods to dictate yours. You stop letting their opinions wound your confidence. You stop letting their actions determine your inner climate. You hold your peace the way a mother holds a newborn, gently but firmly, knowing its fragility but trusting its power. You carry your peace like water, refusing to let anyone spill it. You protect your peace the way a mountain protects its roots, knowing storms will come and storms will go, but what is grounded will always remain. When you no longer take things personally, life becomes clearer. The world becomes kinder. Your heart becomes lighter. Your spirit becomes stronger. Challenges still come, but they no longer shake you the same way. Voices still speak, but they no longer sink into your soul. Opinions still float around you, but they no longer land on your skin like thorns. Your peace becomes something solid, something steady, something unbothered by the temporary storms of others. And from that place of strength, you rise into a life guided not by reaction, but by intention, truth, and deep inner calm. Stillness teaches you more about people than confrontation ever could, because when you remain quiet, the truth steps forward without needing to be forced. Stillness is not passivity, it is perception sharpened by patience. In the soft space where you do not react, people reveal who they truly are. Their intentions unfold, their habits rise to the surface. Their character shows itself in the way they behave when they think you are not rising to defend yourself. Stillness allows you to watch without being swept into the current of emotion. It allows you to see the difference between someone who is genuinely misunderstood and someone who is intentionally creating confusion. It allows you to catch the small things, the subtle things, the things hidden behind words that sound right but feel wrong. People speak loudly even in silence. They speak in the way they handle stress, in the way they respond to disappointment, in the way they treat others who cannot benefit them. Stillness gives you the room to observe all of this. When you stop reacting instantly, you start learning deeply. Confrontation often creates noise that covers the truth. You raise your voice, they raise theirs, and the heart of the matter gets lost in the fire. But stillness cools the moment. Stillness spreads out the pieces of the puzzle so you can see the entire picture, not just the fragment lit by anger. When you are still, you become a quiet witness to life instead of a fighter in every battle. And that witness learns far more than the fighter ever could. Stillness reveals patterns. When you are calm, you start to notice who constantly stirs chaos and who seeks peace. You notice who only comes around when they need something and who shows up because they truly care. You notice who listens to understand and who listens only to respond. You notice whose apologies change into action and whose apologies are empty bridges built from habit, not growth. Without stillness, you rush past these signs. You defend yourself, explain yourself, argue yourself into exhaustion, and miss the truth standing quietly in the corner. But when you stay still, patterns become clear and clarity becomes power. Stillness also gives you a deeper understanding of your own reactions. When you do not rush into emotional responses, you begin to learn your triggers, your wounds, your strengths. You start to see which situations make your heart race because of old pain, not present danger. You learn the difference between intuition and fear. You realize that not every rise in your chest is a call to action. Sometimes it is just the echo of a past you no longer need to carry. Stillness helps you separate your truth from your history. It lets you heal by watching your emotions instead of obeying them. When you remain still, you give yourself the gift of choosing your response instead of being controlled by your impulses. And in that space of choosing, you rise, you grow, you evolve. You begin to guide yourself instead of letting reactions guide you. People often believe that confrontation is the only path to clarity, but confrontation can distort just as easily as it can reveal. Anger speaks in half-truths. Hurt speaks in exaggerations. Fear speaks in defensiveness. But stillness listens. Stillness observes. Stillness understands. There is a quiet strength in the person who does not rush to react. People underestimate this strength because it does not roar. It does not tremble. It does not flare up in a blaze. It stands calm, centered, steady, and unshaken. Stillness is not ignorance. It is intelligence wrapped in patience. It is awareness wrapped in self-control. It is wisdom wrapped in quiet. Someone who practices stillness is not avoiding life. They are studying it. They are learning the landscape before taking a step. They are understanding the patterns before committing to a decision. They are observing the human heart before believing the human words. Stillness is the teacher that reveals what time eventually confirms. When you stay still long enough, you watch people's true priorities emerge. You see who keeps promises without being reminded, who respects your boundaries without needing explanations, who shows loyalty not through words but through consistency. You see who grows and who repeats. You see who loves with honesty and who loves with convenience. You see who stands with you quietly and who supports you only when applause is near. Stillness pulls back the curtain and shows you the character behind the performance. Stillness also protects you. When you remain calm, you are less likely to make rushed decisions that come back to bruise you later. You are less likely to speak words you cannot take back. You are less likely to enter battles that cost more than they offer. You become someone who chooses wisely, not impulsively. And wise choices build a peaceful life. Stillness makes space for intuition. Intuition speaks softly, and confrontation often drowns out its voice. But when you are still, your intuition rises like water in a quiet well. It tells you when something is off even when the surface looks smooth. It tells you when someone's energy is wrong even when their smile seems right. It tells you when it's time to stay and when it's time to walk away. Without stillness, intuition becomes a whisper lost in noise. With stillness, intuition becomes a guide. Stillness teaches you that you do not need to fight every battle to prove your strength. Sometimes strength is stepping back. Sometimes strength is watching without reacting. Sometimes strength is walking away. People may confuse your stillness for weakness, but their confusion does not change your truth. A tree does not prove its strength by shouting at the wind. It stands. It roots itself. It waits out the storm. And when the storm passes, the tree is still there. That is the power of stillness. In stillness, you learn who needs your energy and who does not. You learn what deserves your time and what only steals it. You learn which situations require your voice and which situations crumble under the weight of your silence. You learn that wisdom does not always speak. Sometimes wisdom watches. Sometimes wisdom waits. Sometimes wisdom lets people reveal their own hearts. Stillness is a teacher of people, but it is also a teacher of yourself. You learn your strength. You learn your softness. You learn what calms you and what shakes you. You learn the kind of life your spirit is trying to build. You learn how peace feels in your body, how clarity feels in your mind, and how freedom feels in your soul. Stillness shows you the parts of yourself you once ignored in the rush of reaction. And as you learn, as you watch, as you grow, you begin to move differently in the world. You become more intentional, more discerning, more emotionally independent. You stop giving your energy away to every conflict that appears. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not listening. You stop pouring effort into places where effort goes to waste. You stop letting noise pull you off your path. Stillness shapes you into someone who stands firm, sees clearly, and chooses wisely, learning more from observation than confrontation ever taught you.